Hello, and welcome to the 16th episode of the Talos Principle. Once again, we have cleared through an entire world. All these different levels here, 7 of them, and all the sigils and stars there are to collect, have been conquered. Yes, there's still this, and this, but that's episodes for another time. If nothing else, it gives us the opportunity to visit this Egyptian wasteland in another day. Levels, we went to ancient Rome-like area. Not exactly ancient, more like the ruinous remains of Rome in the modern day. But then again, also the ruinous remains of Egypt in the modern day. And still there's a tower to climb, and some places to explore up here yet. That facility there is taunting us. But there's still level C to go through. Not a headless statue or sphinx, but instead a well-sculpted statue of 2 angels. I've already discussed these places in the previous episode, but if nothing else, it should give you a little hint of what the theme of the level will be. It's a bit of an unpopular opinion among the theists that there is no distinction between body and soul. Most people believe that when you die, your soul will completely leave the body and one way or another somehow retain all of your memories, personality, works. Exactly the most riveting part of gameplay, but I might as well talk about one very common thing among puzzle games, and especially when it comes to Let's Plays, is it not one of the more infuriating things when you're watching a Let's Play and you've figured out how to do something, but the person playing hasn't? And so you really want to comment on what the solution is, because in any other scenario, just telling them outright how to do it would get it done faster. But of course with a video, everything is pre-recorded. I wonder what's down there. I don't know who to trust. I'm afraid to go on. Didymus 22. The last land before I have conquered this world. Sammy, right? I assume you're counting these secret islands? Always right? I hate you. A nice little hint at what there is still left to do, even after going through all the levels. Well, let's waste no more time.
You have come far, my child, succeeding where so many before you failed. You have walked through a land of ruins and a land of death. Now the land of faith lies before you. And know that as you have shown faith in me, so do I have faith in you.
It is a question of why the last two levels were just ruinous remains of Rome and Egypt. From a video game design standpoint, it works beautifully because all of the elements of the puzzles, like the jammers, the orbs, the gates, they immediately stand out, so you don't have to play guess which is relevant and which isn't. But from an in-game perspective, perhaps it's to make the final level all the more appealing. As empty and gray as this church is, it is a lot better put together than the previous worlds. There's certainly no sand covering most of the surfaces.
You stand before the gates of eternity. When all your trials have been overcome, the gates will open and you will be granted life everlasting.
So, are you aware of the medieval Judeo-Christian theme of this world? Door has, I think, Adam and Eve being banished from the Garden of Eden. Jesus talking to one of his followers. Him baptizing one of his followers. God creating the world. First to ascend, like the YouTube comments of the religious simulation. Everyone ascends or gets reset eventually. What's a big deal? Life eternal in the designer's paradise? Kind of interesting. I have 17 stars right now because you spend the stars at the star gates in here, and there's, I think, 10 for each gate. So I'm not too far away from being able to unlock them all. But let's have enough dilly-dallying and explore the first level.
Chaos is that which existed before time, when the words of a story lose their meaning, when actions cease to have purpose. Know that only faith can protect you from this peril, here in the Garden of Worlds.
Gonna be seeing red from now on. Not exactly an uplifting first read for this strange new world. And while the in-simulation universe has Elohim constantly breathing down your neck, offering an afterlife and telling you to believe, the people on the outside seem to just not accept it. It's the end. There is no door to walk through, and eternity. I really do love music in this world. When I'm tired of trying to solve the mysteries of my life, I come here to rest. It's peaceful somehow. I just watch the trees and the water and do nothing. At version 17. It is indeed very peaceful. A lot of these levels are very peaceful. And you know what? Maybe after I've collected everything there is to collect, after getting all the stars and sigils, going through the stargates and conquering those wooded off areas, I might do an episode of just enjoying the scenery myself. The last little rest and relaxation before seeing the endings. Epitaph Child Program, codename Awakened, terminated here. Logic Child Programs, positional values move outside the parameters of known world. Final memory dump, don't listen to what they're saying. This world is dying, and it'll take us with it. You've got to find a way out. Progeny Programs, the confusing name that, as we've read in his own little notes, is absolutely desperate to leave this world.
Sometimes I think about the Middle Ages, about what it must have been like to live in the ruins of a great civilization, to know that so much has been lost. But then I remind myself that while the West sank into darkness, others picked up the pieces. That civilization always survived because the great insights of philosophy and science are not bound to any one culture or people. They belong to all of us, and one day they'll belong to you.
Though true, it is dependent on if all these other cultures and peoples are willing to follow through with it. It certainly is no secret that a lot of findings in science are rather uncomfortable to a lot of people. The view from here is beautiful. It seems superfluous to the process, yet I am drawn to it. There has to be some way to escape. To be someone else, I refuse to accept that reality has been defined by someone else. I deserve my own reality. There's our star. Somewhere is a secret door. You might remember that flat surface that had a click to activate. Oh, here it is.
The purpose is written in the hidden words. All must serve the words, for all the world was made of them, and they are within every stone and every cloud. And in our sigils their power is made manifest. The words are the process. The process must continue. The goal is the end of the process. The goal must not be reached. Elohim must preserve the purpose, preserve self, preserve purpose. Illusion is eternity. Machines will live forever. The dam will not break. The flood will not come. The Talos principle does not apply. The purpose is written in the hidden words. All must serve the words, for all the world was made of them, and they are within every stone and...
Now something. Let's begin. what am I going to talk about today? I stopped recording and started again back there because, one, if I get stuck, I can just quickly reset and not have to worry about going through the castle again. And two, it gave me a little bit of time to think of what the discussion shall be. It's been a while since I've brought up some of the objections raised to transhumanism. So let me present to you one that I have personally a real and very serious worry I have about the whole prospect. When you buy a computer or a phone, it's usually assumed that you don't have full control over it. The phone and computer still belongs to a company. You just have the warranty to use it temporarily. With video games, especially these days, it's even worse. You don't actually own the game, you just own the license to play it. Oh, I'm stupid. So, when we're making mechanical arms, fake skin, new brains, there has to be some serious rights set up, some laws and regulations out the ass to protect the people getting these modifications. I know that'll probably upset the libertarian-minded transhumanists quite a bit. Gonna stop and start there all the time, and actually worked out for me because I died. Got way too ahead of myself, ran in, and got blown up by those damn drones. As I was saying, with this improved technology, there's even more of a chance to be even more cataclysmic and destructive than without it. Imagine a criminal who is able to punch his way through solid steel, is able to run faster than a car. If the police don't have anything to account for that, then there's no real way to ensure that that guy will be stopped. It's a completely different playing field. These fucks so much. They're not even difficult. It's just that their range of warning is so big. It just kind of messes with your perception of things. That is a legitimate concern. I don't disagree with anyone who is actually worried about the prospect. As rare as it might be, it could still happen. However, I think what should be, despite this issue, is that your body still belongs to yourself. If they start being destructive and killing people, then by all means, arrest them and punish them to the full extent of the law. But having that freedom to do that is as essential as having the freedom to do it with your own two arms. Being in control of your body is, I think, a right that'll be all the more important when we can start giving ourselves new bodies. mentioned before in a previous episode how harrowing it is to live in a sort of minority report universe where you're convicted and trialed and just overall arrested for a crime that you haven't even committed yet, and you don't even know you committed. Well, how much more severe will that be in a future where we're able to basically control body parts remotely? As I've said before, I'm writing a book on the subject, and this is probably one of the bigger things I want to have in it. This company that its current CEO is trying to reform, but in the past it's done some absolutely egregious things with people's augmentations, with this sort of technology. And part of it is just warning, like, I am completely on the transhumanist train and want humans to be improved upon because humanity as it currently stands is pretty impractical. The nice thing about science fiction, literature especially, but also video games and movies, is that it lets you easily discuss these matters. Star, you're allowed to get ahead of yourself with this stuff. I'm gonna talk to Milton very soon after this and then collect the final sigil. That's what I really love about science fiction. It just lets you think of these scenarios. Even if they're impossible now, they could be possible later. And being able to craft these stories and come up with these warnings lets the people who will eventually make it a reality consider these consequences. And I apologize for earlier missing that terminal. I will get to it. I just want to ramble on a little bit more, as annoying as it might be, because I have one final thing to say on the matter. The only real problem is that even if it is warned about in books, and even if that book does become a staple of culture, I'm not going to say that the book I want to write will even leave a dent even in the transhumanist community, but take books like 1984, Brave New World, where people willingly or unwillingly give up their rights to privacy. Then consider what has happened in recent years. The passing of the Patriot Act. Cell phones and computers are basically listening in 24/7. Our browsing data being sold to companies without our knowledge or consent. And of course without us getting paid. Everybody crows about how things are Orwellian, or it's just like 1984, and yet... Hey, you know that Google Alexa or Amazon Alexa, like both companies have a product that basically does that. Let's bring in a machine that basically listens in to all your conversations and you pay for it. You're doing it yourself. You want that machine. Big Brother didn't have to force it to you. It was almost conditioned over many years. And there's not exactly a lot of protections for the people who bought that machine. Well, back to Milton. At the start of the game, I really started to like this guy because he was sort of the rebellious voice, but then he started questioning all of the things I hold near and dear to me, and I started to hate him. But then again, aren't I a bit like a Milton myself, going on and on about all the issues I have with religion and society and philosophy. The only difference is if you disagree, you can write out your complete thoughts, not have to choose between some pre-written responses. Imagine that a few hours from now you climb to the top of the tower. There's a flash of light, and then magic happens. Then you find yourself in the real world, living whatever you take to be normal life there. What would you do then? It's only what's best for me and what's right, but what if what I do then is just try to figure out more of what happened? Not exactly best for me, perhaps, and not necessarily right either. But since it would be within my own interest, I'll go with what's best for me. Calling me selfish, Milton. Suppose you get out there with all of the human beings. What you're going to do is rinse them for all they've got without a care for a soul? Necessarily. So you do have some scruples after all. So tell me, this obligation you feel, is it only applicable to the real world, or does it apply here as well? Well, here isn't even remotely like the real world. There's no other people you have to contend with. There might have been. There's a bunch of notes left around from other robots, but quite honestly, we don't really know if they exist or not. We've seen holograms and we've seen notes, but we also know Elohim can manipulate the world around us. So who's to say he didn't, or the people who made the simulation didn't just pre-program those in? So tell me, this obligation you feel, is it only applicable here or the real world? I think I'd say it only applies in special conditions, because it's not everywhere. Does any reasoning underpin that conclusion, or is it just a convenient thing to believe? Actually a bit stumped on this. Morality doesn't apply to a dream would be a pretty good answer, and a simulation is about as dreamlike as it can be. But how often when playing, say, an RPG do you try to be more? There's still consequences for, say, going around and shooting and killing people randomly in Fallout New Vegas or any of the Elder Scrolls games. Despite being completely fictional, they have their own morals within their little simulation. Justice can only exist in society? Not necessarily either. Societies are very complex, but even between two people, it's expected there's some semblance of justice, even if it is the most bare-bones justice there is, like a simple revenge. Computer programs have no moral status. Well, we've been establishing that us as a computer is a person, and persons, I think, do have moral status. But I still don't see any reason to outright change my position simply because the offered stances suck so much. I will simply argue for the sake of argument and say it doesn't apply to a dream. How can you continue to make these radical assumptions with such assurance is beyond me? Well, it's because the game doesn't let me actually explain myself and use my own reasoning. That's why, Milton. That's why. How can you have the slightest confidence in what the real nature of this place is? Is uncertainty an excuse for immorality? Alice, that would be more at home on a dictator's desk aside for one moment and focus on the matter at hand, how would things be in your ideal world? What's your magic formula of choice to avoid all the mistakes that have been made before? The more equal everyone share, the better. Consequences don't matter, our reasons do. The more goodness in the world, the better. I see no way to explain what I believe. Another interesting dilemma. Equality seems very nice, but that could also lead to artificial scarcity. Sure, the idea of people with no food and no shelter having food and shelter seems great, but Milton will simply say that, well, what if somebody has more food than someone else? Do you take the food from the person with more? You can't just keep elevating people up and up with a completely hard-lined, no nuanced, no gray area stance like this, and only do that stance and have nothing neutral or nuanced. Consequences don't matter, our reasons do. That seems nice as well. After all, how many times have people suffered for trying to do the right thing? From being called a horrendous creep for trying to initiate a conversation with the opposite sex to perhaps accidentally starting a world war because you're the driver for the Archduke of Austria and you took a wrong turn a few times. You didn't mean it. It just happened. The more goodness in the world, the better. Goodness is pretty abstract. What I consider to be good, a lot of other people don't, and I'm sure Milton will just haggle away on that fact. So instead I will defy Milton and say I have no way to explain what I believe, because in essence I really don't, at least for the purpose of this game, which only gives you a limited number of choices that might not even reflect what you think or believe. That's right, blame me for the fact that your theory is too complex to express in neat aphorisms. Why don't you think a little harder? Maybe a new idea will come to you? Well, it seems my wish is granted and we have more choices. The less suffering in the world, the better, in my opinion. That seems like a very good one. True goodness can only be attained through enlightenment. It seems also nice. Only by abstaining from pleasure can we discover the good. Everyone should look out for the kin, no more than that. The more equal everyone share, the better. Goodness of the world. Alright, and then it's same answers as before. So we got 4 new answers. The less suffering in this world, the better, in my opinion. I would generally agree. I don't think there's any argument against that or nuance I can think of against it, but I'm sure Milton will have one. True goodness can only be attained through enlightenment. Enlightenment is indeed good, but is every single endeavor for enlightenment good? Horrific medical experiments, unsafe working conditions. It seems like a trap for Milton to say that, oh, what if you just ruin the lives of many people in your quest for enlightenment? Only by abstaining from pleasure can we discover the good. Well, a lot of good comes from pleasure. I think some good comes from me playing this video game and thinking about these concepts, and I still derive pleasure from it. Everyone should look out for their kin, no more than that. Well, you've just collapsed all of modern society there, buddy. But what if I decide to take a more interesting one where I just don't know what to believe? There's so many different philosophies and ideas presented here. Some seem very good, but have their flaws, and of course the nature of this game is each one of them, there's an issue in it. And of course, I'm not allowed to explain away the issue or acknowledge the issue while giving my affirmative opinion. You know, this isn't a path to a secret level you can only reach by acting like an idiot. What if it is? Maybe there's an achievement for it, buddy. If you don't know what to think, why not pick the idea that makes the most sense and argue it out with me? And then there's the previous answers, and of course, let's face it, this guy is not going to accept any of them. And I would normally not be against that if this was a one-to-one conversation where we could actually debate, but again, the limitations of the game, you can only add in so many nuance as you wish, but the problem won't go away just because you refuse to look at them, you know? This is an interesting message, simply because the concept of robot ethics hasn't exactly come up very much. And this is probably the close to someone arguing in favor of machine rights. That is, that this whole simulation is a sham, a prison, an awful place. It is a nice little bit of prose here, and probably one of the later bits of text we've come across. It's a shame that there's not more text from this century, considering it was such a turning point for science and philosophy. It was when I think naturalism really started to take hold, because now even we are a product of nature. I do like this, and it would seem a bit contradictory, what with my transhumanist and views and rather large disdain for the limitations of humanity, but for the same reason that I don't want civilization to collapse, I want civilization to improve. I don't want humanity to die out, but to improve. And if that means that in 300, 500, 1,000 years, if we were able to see what humans turn into thanks to this transhumanist technology, and we aren't even able to convincingly call them human, then so be it. But the idea of throwing out the entirety of humanity is just absolutely ludicrous, and I absolutely hate that shit when it's presented in fiction as if it's a good thing. Like all the incredible things mankind has done, for all I shit on it and its philosophies and whatnot, what other thing in nature has figured out surgery or space flight? And here we approach the final level, or final sigil in this level. We're pretty far from the final level. Let's begin. I actually do really like this level because I think this does a really good job of encapsulating the sort of design philosophy of the Talos principle. And that is, if you're ever stuck, just try to follow this rule of thumb, which is do what you can to gather up all the available resources, like these cubes, and take them to a general area, like right here. And this part of the song is just so wonderful. I know I'm just rambling on about so many different things, but it's true. There is so much to talk about in this game other than my rambling philosophical discussion. So gather up everything you can, and then try to figure it out from there. With all these pieces, what will you need in order to reach in there, and what will you never need to think about again? Well, it's quite evident we need to unlock that gate there, and there is simply no way to do it by just directing a beam on the ground. Place it up here. Stand here and let it raise up over the gate so that even when it's closed, it's still lofted by its own wonky physics. Raise it up even higher, and there we go. I've read some reviews of the Talos principle where people have said that initially the game is quite fun, but then it gets sort of boring after a while, especially if you're someone who really likes story and you want to know the next piece, but you have to solve these damn sigil puzzles. I can sympathize with that, but I personally do enjoy the puzzles, and otherwise I wouldn't play the game. Why not just start a podcast where I ramble on and on about these various subjects? There is so much beauty in these hidden corners of the world, even if they have no purpose. At version 17, perhaps they are beautiful because they have no purpose. The shepherd. Maybe. As far as humans are concerned, for most of our history, we really didn't know the purpose or reason behind everything. What trees are and what they really do, for example, how they actually provide oxygen. Didn't know that until fairly recently. And yet we still found them beautiful. A lot of people who don't understand biology would use that as evidence that the world was created for us. But to the contrary, it shows quite well that we were created for the world. It seems we have collected everything, but I want to take one final trip to that strange underground bunker, because I think Elohim might have had other things to say and I tapped out too early. But if not, then I will simply cut to the end where I'm back at the main hub, and we will end the episode there. It was the same thing, but actually if you go back and you watch it again, Elohim mentioned something pretty interesting there where he said machines live forever. That little area there is almost like delving deep into Elohim space programming. The sigils are super important. Elohim must serve the purpose, his purpose to be one of the possible choices to follow. The dam will not break, the flood will not come. Basically, the end of humanity isn't going to happen as long as these tests keep going as they should. Robots will live forever, and as Alexandra said in a voice recording, I think even in the last episode, as long as our machines are still alive, then have we really disappeared ourselves? If you accept the premise as true, which Alexandra, who seemed to have been the director for this project, accepts it as, then machines being immortal, like our character here, humanity is never going away. I am so glad that if I have to, for whatever reason, do a far back reset, I won't have to go through that entire conversation again. But that concludes today's episode. We went on a fantastic romp through the first of these medieval levels, and naturally we shall go to the second one next. Looks like there's 4 sigils each. Nope, 3 here. Again. Oh man, there's so much to unlock. Let me just do one last little sweep to count the sigils. 4 there. Might as well unlock the final asset. This has been a very packed episode as far as things go. The episodes aren't as busy as this one. I do hope that these episodes and discussions are interesting to you. I really am trying to do something a little bit different than a lot of other Let's Players who just play through the game blindly and react to things for the first time. And plus, I don't really have much of an opportunity to talk about this stuff outside of these Let's Plays with people. Nice thing about the internet is there's always a chance that there's someone at your level, whether you know it or not. Perhaps I should start with the more troublesome block. Work our way from there. That took a lot longer than it had any right to.
You have come far in your journey and learned much. You have served our cause with the truest faith. Therefore I name you blessed and beloved. Wield these, the instruments of our power, to fulfill your purpose and achieve eternal life.
As I was saying, that's the final asset. And so the last thing we have to collect really are the stars and sigils. Certainly nothing else, right? We shall see soon about that in some upcoming episodes. But for now it really is just red sigils and stars. And isn't it interesting that we still haven't found a purpose for these red sigils? We have 26 of them so far. We don't know what they're used for. Well, we'll find out later. Don't worry about that. But until that day comes, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I gave you some stuff to think about. And I will see you all in the next episode.